Uh-oh. Is it live on your end?
It's saying going live in, and it's 2, 1.
This delay is not a good sign. All right, we're live. If you can hear us, if you can see us, if you're really excited to study APUSH tonight, let us know in the chat where you are coming from. And when we all introduce ourselves, we'll let you know where we are all from as well. My name is Amanda Dwemerall. I'm the founder and CEO of Fiveable. I'm based here in Milwaukee. We are really excited to review foreign policy. This is such a good topic. It's going to review a whole bunch of stuff like across all the time periods. So I'm going to be putting a link for the cram passes below on this button. And what you can do is hop on to get that cram pass before the crams officially start for APUSH. So this is the last preview that we've got. Yeah, I'll be around. I'll be around chatting with y'all in throughout the night, and excited to, like I said, review some foreign policy. So over to you, APUSH team.
Hi everyone, I'm Lyubov. I'm a senior at Minerva University and currently in San Francisco, California. And I will be presenting to you some of the parts of foreign policy in today's topic.
Hey, I'm Andrea Sanat, an APUSH teacher for about 10 years, and I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York.
Hi, I'm Denilah. I'm a senior at JP Stevens High School. If anybody's a hawk, y'all know what it is. And I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you.
Can y'all hear Emmy?
Yeah.
Try turning the mic on and off. We're going to get to it in 1 minute. Lyubov, you want to start the slideshow? So tonight we're going to take you guys through foreign policy for the United States. We're going to go from the beginning, George Washington, all the way up to the modern day. Next week, when we start our cram sessions, we're going to be going chronologically, starting with period 1. And each night we're going to cover 2 to 3 time periods, and we're going to move through the different types of questions. So we'll kind of review the content, the history, and then we'll talk about how you might see that content in a multiple choice, a short answer, DBQ or LEQ. If you guys have any questions about foreign policy as we move through, please let us know in the chat or the Q&A. And then any questions about the exam, we're happy to answer as we move forward. So U.S. foreign policy, always going to run concurrently to domestic policy. You really need to know both. A lot of times they are interconnected, right? What's happening with America and the world is going to impact what happens here at home and vice versa. So we're going to focus today on several presidents' policies that they set forth, and then see how that played out through various wars throughout the year. Yay, Helen's back.
Could you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, that's good. So,
you can introduce yourself, and if you want to get started with George Washington, or if you want me to take it, that's cool too.
Yeah, could you see my camera too, or?
I could see you.
Okay, I can see the slides, but
I can't see the slides either. Lyubov, are you able to still screen share? Great.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Helen, and I'm really excited for you guys to be here, and I'm really excited to be here to help you guys with APUSH, and we're really excited to talk about foreign policy, and I hope you guys all do great on your AP exam. So, as Andrea was saying, that these like primary sources and quotes are so important, like because you're gonna have them on your SAQs and MCQs, so that's why we thought it was a good idea to have for the our preview. And then, so this is George Washington's farewell address. So this actually was kind of related to Declaration of Independence, where you have like those democratic ideals. And George Washington's farewell address like set a huge precedent of making farewell addresses for presidents, so on. And he really talks a lot about neutrality, and this was like really important. So we could go on to the next slide. So neutrality is like something that like every president after Washington will try to aspire to after his presidency. And then his urging of neutrality was because he wanted to get away from like the messy European politics, kind of similar to like the ideals in the Declaration of Independence. And this whole idea was kind of just used throughout the 20th century by politicians to justify isolationism away from the Europeans, because America wanted to build their own like prominence. And so like in this immediate context, Washington had issued a statement of neutrality in the French Revolution, and he really urged America to not take sides in the issues between France and England because it'll diminish the US's power. So this just whole policy was designed to just keep Europe and out of America's politics and to help build America up.
And we're now reviewing the Monroe Doctrine. So, as a principle in which the rights and interests of the United States are involved, that the American continents, by the free and independent condition which they have assumed and maintained, are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers. So that was Monroe Doctrine, a statement by President James Monroe advocating for American dominance in the Western Hemisphere. It was issued in 1823. And basically what it was a message sent to Europe saying that, oh, we don't really want your interference in the US affairs. And it was the US states started to assert itself as a regional power and to resist European efforts to expand their control over the Western Hemisphere. So there were three key principles of Monroe Doctrine. America would stay out of European wars unless directly impacted. European nations would not take any new colonies or make any attempt to take back control over former colonies in the Americas, and the US would count any European colonization attempt in the Western Hemisphere as an unfriendly act. And I will pass it to Emmy. Emmy, can we hear you?
Hello? Wait, can people hear me?
Yes.
I could hear.
You can hear me? Can you see me?
No, Andrea, you muted as well.
Okay, well, my screen is still loading, so I can't really see anything. But hi guys, I'm Emmy. I'll be talking about wars today. So after the Monroe Doctrine was the Mexican-American War, and at this point, it's 1845, and Texas was admitted to the Union as a state. So that's pretty exciting. And there's currently a border dispute. At this time, there was a border dispute between the US and Mexico. And President Polk really wanted to gain a lot of land. And so he was really pushing Congress to declare war on Mexico and gain that disputed land and more. So they sort of settled on a treaty. This is the Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo. And Mexican pretty much ceded to the US 525,000 square miles in exchange for $15 million. So they got a lot of land from that. And from those land, the US could gain future states like Texas, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Washington, and Oregon. And immediately after that, pretty much everyone was questioning, would these states be free or would they be slave states? So some congressmen tried to pass the Wilmot Proviso, which pretty much would ban slavery in all the new territories, but it didn't really work out. And then after that, there would be the gold rush in California, which would sort of spark that debate even more and make it more dramatic almost. And that would lead to the Compromise of 1850. And then after that, there was the Spanish-American War. Cuban revolutionaries had been fighting for their independence from Spain, and Americans supported the Cuban independence movement. And a key motto from this time was Cuba Libre, which means like independence for Cuba. And pretty much the American government and businesses really wanted European powers out of the Caribbean. And at this time, there was also another motto, which is Remember the Maine, which was sparked into popularity when the US battleship Maine mysteriously sank in the harbor of Havana in 1898. And pretty much after that, the American public blamed the sinking on Spain without really any real evidence. And this new concept called yellow journalism led to the declaration of war. And yellow journalism was pretty much just like a bunch of gossip almost. And they would pretty much be like, yeah, Spain sank this ship, even though they didn't really have any evidence. And because of that, a lot of people sort of got on board with the war and were like, yeah, let's go to war. So after that, the war was won in 4 months, and the Platt Amendment.
We can't hear you right now. We haven't been able to hear about the Spanish-American War.
We still can't hear you, but maybe then, do you want me to I could go over it, Spanish-American War. But okay, so as Emmy was saying, the Spanish-American War kind of happened around 1898, and so basically the Cuban revolutionaries had been really fighting for their independence from Spain, and America was supporting Cuba independence. But the American government only was really doing this because the American government and businesses wanted European powers out of the Caribbean. But then you have to really remember the US Maine battleship because it mysteriously sank into the harbor of Havana, Cuba in 1898. And the American public were really mad at this time, and it led to a lot of pressure on the government too because they blamed the sinking on Spain. And as Emmy was saying, yellow journalism was basically a lot of not really proven truths, but a lot of rumors, and it just made a lot of people really angry and led to all this polarization. So it kind of led to the declaration of the Spanish-American War. So the war was won in 4 months, so it wasn't too long. And the Platt Amendment in the Cuban Constitution basically gave the United States the right to intervene. And then it had a good impact because it was kind of seen as the turning point in U.S. foreign policy because the Spanish really gave up their claims on Cuba and they ceded sovereignty to over Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines to the United States. So the U.S. also really annexed the independent state of Hawaii during the conflict, and they began a debate over imperialism in the United States between Americans. And so the U.S. really just established its dominance in the Caribbean and pursued strategic and economic interests in Asia. But essentially, in conclusion, the Spanish-American War is just like a good word to know because it was just a turning point in foreign policy in America, and it really sparked the conversation about imperialism. Okay, so Emmy, maybe you want to give next slide a chance.
We still can't
Okay.
hear you, Remy.
So the Philippine-American War, so it happened around 1899 to 1902. So the Filipino nationalists were led by Emilio Aguinaldo, and they were really also fighting Spain for their independence when America annexed the Philippines. And they wanted for their strategic location to be in China, but then this whole war utilized brutal guerrilla style warfare. And then this led to so many atrocities and so many deaths. It actually resulted in the deaths of over 4,200 Americans and over 20,000 Filipino combatants. And there was an estimated 200,000 Filipino civilian death rate from violence, famine, and disease, all result to this war. So this war was just so devastating. And the whole impact on American politics was that this debate over imperialism really dominated the election of 1900s, and you just see the spark of imperialism and like a huge divide between imperialists, like in those in favor and those who weren't. And like a lot of people opposed it on moral grounds because they said that since America was founded by like the ideals of life, liberty, prosperity in the Declaration of Independence, a democracy can give consent of the governed to occupy territories, but others saw like through a kind of racist, traditionalist lens, and they feared non-white people coming into America. And also some other people who were in support, they wanted to like uplift, civilize, and Christianize, which is President McKinley's quote. And it was kind of the idea of the white man burden, like they had to go and make the other nations that weren't white like better. And then, so the bottom line was that it was good for business and it led to markets for American goods and more trades. But in our view today, that it might not have been the most moral or right. Okay, so then this is Theodore Roosevelt's annual message to Congress for 1904. And again, it's like the same idea as Washington's, like he utilizes those same democratic ideals, but the only thing is he talks about the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, so during this time, this is like a debate against and for imperialism during the 1900s. And in 1904, a bunch of European creditors of a number of Latin American countries threatened armed intervention to collect debts. So President Theodore Roosevelt, he promptly proclaimed the right of the United States to exercise an international police power to curb such chronic wrongdoing. So, as you recall from above, that in the Monroe Doctrine, U.S. had no enforcement strategy, but Roosevelt Corollary was when U.S. like actually had some grounds to kind of like threaten your like against European intervention because the U.S. at this time became like a stronger power, one of like a leading nations of the world at the time. And like the US had a military at the time and they had a strong track record of like successful presidents. So this is kind of when they had some reason to seem threatening. So this really just justified the United States being sent into other countries of the Western Hemisphere. And the US Marines were sent to Santo Domingo, Nicaragua, and Haiti. And this is the whole idea of the Panama Canal too, and how the U.S. really intervened in all these countries in the Western Hemisphere, like in South America, and how U.S. became the leading power. Okay, so now we're gonna start our practice quiz. So LaBeouf will pull that up. But basically, our practice quizzes is a new feature from Five-O that we're really excited to share with you guys. And they're going to be like these multiple choice type style questions. And you guys should take maybe like a phone or another second device, and then there will be a QR code on the screen for you guys to scan. And then from the QR code, you could scan it, and then you will be sent to the multiple choice, and then just stay here in the stream, obviously. Okay, so you guys could scan the QR code on your phone, and then it should take you to the link. And LaBeouf, you could play the music while we wait.
Can you hear it? The music?
I can't hear it.
I also can't hear it, but that's okay.
Okay. So we'll wait. I see your guys' emojis. So while we're waiting, how are you guys feeling for the AP exam so far? You could like drop it in the chat. Are you guys feeling confident on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being least confident, 5 being confident. Yeah, it is a pretty stressful exam, but it's okay. Once you guys get it over with, you'll be so happy. You don't even know. No, you guys won't fail. Don't worry. You are here today, and you're doing like the most, so don't worry. And also, again, we have the I'm coming up with a cold. But we have our 5-level program sessions, which are also run by the same team. And they really do help, I think. We go through every single unit and everything you need to know for it.
Okay, should we start?
Yeah. Is anyone else still joining?
Join. It's gonna be fun. Oh yeah, people.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll start. And then you guys could join along the way, so don't be stressed. Okay, so 1. How did the Alien and Sedition Acts impact the early United States? So we mixed in like a few other questions just in case, because it's still good practice for the AP exam. And when you guys are done with the question, maybe you could put like an emoji or something, so when I see an influx of them, we could reveal the answer. Okay, maybe we could reveal the answer now. So C, they ignited a debate over the constitutionality of laws passed by the Congress and the balance of power between the branches. So that was an unrelated question. Early court found involving and maybe with reveal the answer now. So it was the war against the Barbary pirates. And again, I'm just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A chat or the regular chat, and someone will get to you guys. Next question. Which document warned European countries against colonialism in the Americas? The Monroe Doctrine. And yeah, you guys mostly got it right. Okay. So for the success of some Latin American independence movements and fear that Spain would try to reclaim them was the factor in motivating the creation of blank. Reveal now. So it was again the Monroe Doctrine. So, yeah, that's like the mostly the reason why the Monroe Doctrine was created, and yeah, because I'm looking at the percentage of correctness. Okay. What policy did Jefferson enact that angered both Northerners and the British? Okay, it was the Embargo Act. And again, we're just putting in extra random questions just to keep you guys on your toes, because that's kind of how the exam will be. The United States became politically engaged with the Philippines after which military conflict? Yeah, so it was the Spanish-American War, and guys, good job, because most of you got it right. What was the purpose of the Berlin Conference? Yeah, so it was to divide up Africa between the European powers, and then to the next. Which country did U.S. states acquire because of the Spanish-American War? Yep, it was Puerto Rico, but don't worry because usually the APUSH exam will never go that in depth or like that concise like of an answer, you know? It's usually more of like a general idea. So it was the United States' refusal to recognize the Philippine Declaration of Independence, which was the main factor that really contributed to the outbreak of the Philippine-American War. So next. When did the Spanish-American War take place? And it was Yep, it was 1898 to 1901, and it's a good idea to kind of know some of the dates of like the wars and amendments being passed, because when you do sourcing questions, it's kind of nice to like have the like specific date of things going on in your head, so when you get a source, you will know what was the U.S. going through during that time. What was the result of the Treaty of Paris, which ended the Spanish-American War? And it was that because Spain gave up Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines to the United States. And good job, guys, because most of you got it right. And then 12, last question, guys. Why did Americans initially support staying out of World War II? Kind of a precursor question to our next few slides. Okay, and it was because of the isolationist belief between among public and political people that World War II wasn't their problem. And it kind of was interesting because it was like the original belief of Washington, like that whole isolationism. And that's really when America really was listening to George Washington's farewell address, because no one wanted to get involved in this huge world war. Okay, so we can end the quiz. Okay, and guys, don't worry if you got any wrong questions, because we will be going over like a lot more topics and you still have time to study, and then you can still ask questions in the chat. And I still totally recommend signing up for the 5 Bowl Crams, because we'll be going over every single unit and how to answer like the LEQ, DBQ, SAQs, and everything. Like, totally do not worry if you got like low scores on the multiple choice or anything. And Labov is going to be pulling up the next few slides, and I will be talking all about World War I. So how do you guys feel in the world wars? Because I actually thought I took world before APUSH, so I felt like pretty good with that. Okay, so now I'll start World War I. Okay, so World War I was a huge conflict, which involved so many powers from 1914 to 1917. Okay, So I like to memorize these 4 words with Maine, the acronym, militarism, M, imperialism, and nationalism, and assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the guy who basically started the whole World War. So, the assassination, this led to a huge massive conflict along alliance lines in Europe. And how did America get involved? Because America really didn't want to get involved right away. But the sinking of the Lithuania, a British ship, killed 123 Americans, because a lot of Americans were actually on the ship, and the Simmergram telegram, which is a message from Germany to Mexico, which was decoded and shared by the British. Also, that message urged Mexico to invade the United States and to keep the United States occupied in exchange for German support for Mexico, taking back parts of the Mexican cession. And this was a huge red flag for the United States, and the United States wasn't going to let this happen. So it led to the U.S. to reluctantly join the war in 1916. And again, this war, the wars seem to just get increasingly more casualties because of increasing technology and new war strategies. So trench warfare is big. You guys should know that because it's definitely going to be somewhere that's a huge part of World War One. So trench warfare and industrial weapons, it leads to horrific casualties and terrible death rates. And it's never going to be seen before. And an armistice is called in 1917, and Germany is basically punished for its aggression. And that is a really key point of the causation of World War II, because Germany felt that they were too badly punished, and they were punished too harshly, and they really didn't have any friends after the war. So that's why World War II, one of the leading reasons that World War II occurred. So the huge impact of World War I is that President Wilson nationalized industries on America, and he called all hands on deck to either fight or support the war effort. And demographic changes like the Great Migration and the 19th Amendment transformed lives for women and African Americans, who really got involved when a lot of people were on the home front fighting this war. And Wilson became a huge player in the war too, because he created his 14-point plan, the League of Nations, but he was voted down by the Senate, and this kind of led to the isolationism of the 1920s. And yeah, armistice is a truce between two opposing sides. Okay. So next is World War II. Lubov, take it away.
Right. So World War II is happening from 1939 to 1945. Seen as a fight against authoritarianism, the US emerged from the war as a global superpower with a booming economy and control of nuclear weapons. US industries did a great business, far exceeding their production and also profits of the 1920s. The Depression was almost over, and the unemployment almost disappeared. Instead of automobiles, tanks and fighter planes rolled off the assembly lines. In 1941, the president delivered a speech that proposed lending money to Britain for the purchase of US war materials. He justified such a policy by arguing that the US must help other nations defend 4 freedoms. So freedom of speech, of religion, from want, and from fear. This shifted World War II from the political war to the ideological one. So they were saying they were fighting against fascism and Nazism rather than just Germany. This helped to frame America as the fighter for democracy in the world. US relations with Japan were becoming increasingly strained as a result of Japan's invasion of China and also its ambitions to extend its power of Southeast Asia. On 1941, December 7th, Japan launches surprise attack on US military base in Pearl Harbor. In little more than an hour, they sank 20 warships and killed more than 24 American sailors and wounded 1,200. Roosevelt spoke before Congress the next day and asked for declaration of war on Japan. Congress supported that, and the declaration of war happened on Japan. On December 11th, Germany and Italy declared war against the US, and at this point, the country was fully involved in World War II. The US and Britain were in a wartime partnership during that time. They both saw Germany as a great danger, and so on June 6th, the invasion began. The Allied Air Force began firebombing German cities such as Hamburg and Dresden, as well as Tokyo in Japan. And this was done with high explosive, incendiary, and phosphorus bombs. By April, the armies had surrounded Berlin. Hitler refused to surrender, and he ordered all men, starting from toddler age to older people, to fight or to be shot on the spot. Later, he committed suicide on April 30th, and in a week, on May 7th, Eisenhower accepted the unconditional surrender of German forces. The war in the Pacific was dominated by naval forces battling over extensive areas. In early 1942, the Japanese conquered the Philippines. The American Filipino forces on the main island fell back toward the Bataan Peninsula and were ultimately besieged and surrendered in May 1942. Kamikaze, Japanese suicide planes, caused major damage in the Battle of Okinawa, and before finally succeeding in taking this island near Japan, the US suffered losses around 50,000 people. Truman decided to utilize atomic bombs as a way to save lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans, as it was viewed. And the US dropped a bomb on Hiroshima, killing 60,000, and a second bomb on Nagasaki. 3 weeks later, the Japanese surrendered. During the war, the Big Three, so the leaders of the US, Soviet Union, and also Great Britain, arranged to meet secretly to discuss different strategies, military strategies, and also to lay foundation for peace terms and post-war involvement. So one of the most historic ones was Yalta Conference in 1945. After the victory in Europe was achieved, they agreed that Germany would be divided into occupation zones. There would be free elections in the liberated countries of Eastern Europe. The Soviets would enter the war against Japan, which they did after Japan surrendered, and a new world peace organization, the future United Nations, would be formed at a conference in San Francisco. And now we are also moving to another document that could be helpful to review. So President Truman's message to Congress. I believe that it must be the policy of the United States to support free peoples who are resisting attempted subjugation by armed minorities or by outside pressures. I believe that we must assist free peoples to work out their own destinies in their own way. I believe that our help should be primarily through economic and financial aid, which is essential to economic stability and orderly political processes. So that was Truman Doctrine. It was a policy of providing military and economic assistance to countries threatened by communist expansion. The president asked Congress for $400 million in economic and military aid to assist free people of Greece and Turkey against totalitarian regimes. The Truman Doctrine was an informal declaration of Cold War against the Soviet Union. This would guide US foreign policy around the world for the next 40 years. Known as a theory of containment and the related domino theory, future presidential administrations would use similar reasoning to justify their actions in Korea, Cuba, and Vietnam. And Vietnam War. So it was a conflict that lasted from 1955 to 1975 and was fought primarily in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The causes of war can be traced back to the end of World War II and the rise of Cold War tensions between the US and Soviet Union. By the terms of Geneva Conference, Vietnam was to be temporarily divided until a general election could be held, but the country remained divided because on both sides of the country, different hostile governments took over. in North Vietnam, communist dictatorship was established, and on the South, leadership had support from anti-communist, Catholic, and urban Vietnamese, which a lot of them fled from communist rule in the North. From 1955 to 1961, the US government gave over $1 billion in economic and military aid to South Vietnam in an effort to build a stable and also anti-communist state. In justifying this aid, President Eisenhower made an analogy to a row of dominoes. So according to the domino theory, if South Vietnam fell under communist regime, then all the other nations in Southeast Asia would follow. LBJ inherited an American commitment dating to Eisenhower to support an independent South Vietnam. Eventually, LBJ asked Congress to pass a resolution authorizing him to take, quote unquote, all necessary measures to repel any armed attack against the forces of the US and to prevent further aggression. Congress voted its approval for the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, which basically gave the president, as commander-in-chief, a blank check to take all necessary measures to protect the US interests in Vietnam. Full-scale American involvement in Vietnam began in 1965 in a series of steps designed to primarily prevent a North Vietnamese victory. US Army tactics led to the slaughter of innocent civilians, though. There was a turning point in American public's perception of Vietnam War. So on the occasion of their Lunar New Year, Tet, in January 1968, the Viet Cong launched an all-out surprise attack on almost every provincial capital and American base in South Vietnam. The US military counterattacked and inflicted heavy losses on Viet Cong and recovered the lost territory. But the Tet offensive wasn't really interpreted well at home, as people were hearing that the war is almost over and the end is almost there to come, but they didn't see that. So when Richard Nixon took office, more than 500,000 US troops were in Vietnam. His objective was to find a way to reduce US presence in Vietnam and also do not make an appearance of defeat. So he began the process of Vietnamization, which was basically gradually withdrawing US troops from Vietnam, but also support South Vietnam and give them the resources such as money, weapons, and also training they needed to actually take over and win the war. But in April 1975, the US supported government in Saigon fell to the enemy and Vietnam was united, but under the communist rule. And just before the final collapse, the US was able to evacuate around 150,000 Vietnamese who supported the US and now face certain persecution. So that was Vietnam War. And we have a practice quiz for you. We do the practice quiz or Q&A? What do you guys want more? Helen, what do you think? Practice quiz?
Maybe we could see if you guys in the chat want to ask us questions and we can answer them, like our team and us, or do you guys want to do another practice quiz?
We can
practice quiz, Q&A. Oh my gosh, it's split. Okay. Can we score with the leaderboard? I don't think we have scoring ability yet, but okay. I see it looks like a majority went to quiz, so let's do that. And then if you guys do have questions, you can put them in chat and someone will get to you. Don't worry.
Okay, so I actually created a quiz, but that's okay. We will do then the practice quiz, right? Yeah, I see that people vote for the quiz. Okay.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, foreign policy is such a broad thing, but it's really important to know for APUSH when. But do you guys feel comfortable on stuff that we were just talking about? You can put it in chat. Labov's loading up the quiz.
can you see that? Okay, perfect. People are joining. Okay, let's do a few more seconds and we'll start.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat too when Labov starts.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, then let's start. Do we have enough time? So the Yalta Conference. So Yalta Conference was a meeting of allied leaders to plan for post-war Europe, and you guys were super right. Let's move to the next question. Which of the following was not a member of the Axis powers during World War II? Okay, and it's Soviet Union. Yes, so Soviet Union was allied powers, and then Axis powers is the opposite, basically. Next question. Which of the following was not a result of World War II? So it was the establishment of the League of Nations. So that was not a result of World War II, and you guys were, most of them were correct. What was the name of the US foreign policy of providing economic and military aid to countries threatened by communism during the Cold War? Okay, so yeah, you were almost all of you were right. Truman Doctrine, that was the one. Which international organization was formed in 1945 to promote international cooperation and prevent future wars? So United Nations. And again, you are killing it so good. Which event sparked the beginning of the Cold War? So it was the end of World War II. And we'll go over maybe like 2 more questions, so we have time to say our last words. What started the war in Vietnam? Gulf of Tonkin incident. And again, it's the majority. Next question. When was the fall of Saigon? So 1975. One more, and we should be done. Which 2 competing philosophies were at odds during the Cold War? Okay, and it's communism versus capitalism. You guys are right, and let's end the quiz at this point. But you were doing great. So hopefully you guys feel more confident in this specific topic and different wars that the US was involved in. And hope it was beneficial for you to review that information. You can do it. We believe in you. Helen, do you have anything to add?
Nothing much. You guys seem to be getting your questions answered in chat, but again, don't stress. And I think Andrea brought up a really great point in chat that these questions that we're giving you are not College Board AP multiple choice style questions. The AP style questions usually have a stimulus like a graph or a political cartoon or like anything. But these don't, and the AP questions are a little more tricky and they're a little more broad too. So you should read it, guys. We would totally recommend you guys getting the cram passes because we will be going over all the tips and tricks to the AP style multiple choice and like everything.
Great questions, guys. You're all gonna do awesome. We still got a week to go. And hopefully we guys see you on Sunday. We're going to be going in chronological order. So periods 1, 2, and 3 will start us off. Have a great night, everyone.
See you.
Okay, bye guys. We wish you guys the best of luck.